Imagine a world millions of years in the future. A world where evolution has written a new chapter in the story of life. The world is inhabited by very strange creatures, like nothing the Earth has ever seen. $200 million years in the future. In this part of the world, when it rains, it really rains, and creates a massive rainforest stretching for thousands of kilometers. Everything that lives here has to put up with the downpour. Even having to roost in the torrential rain. It rains most of the time here, and that's because 200 million years in the future, the world is very different. All the continents have fused to form one enormous supercontinent, and the northwest coast faces into the prevailing westerly winds, which bring perpetual rain and storms. The rain creates ideal conditions for anything to grow. Below the canopy, an alien-looking world of lichen trees. Lichens that were once tiny, growing over rocks and logs, now reach up to 3 meters high. And living among these lichen trees, tiny, flying creatures. These are forest flish, only 10 centimeters or so long.
At first sight, they look like butterflies. As you look more closely, bizarrely, they turn out to be fish, but fish unlike any we see today. They're fish which have ceased living in the water, live entirely on land, or even more, live in the air.
Today, fish occasionally leave the water, but they're not known as great flyers.
With a few exceptions, modern fish don't fly. But a lot of fish flap their wings and fly in water. There are fish which looks very bird-like when they move around, say, coral reefs. Once you've learnt to move your forelimb, and once you've developed the musculature around the base of the fin, which means you can generate a lot of force with that, then getting into the air with it is very easy. You can imagine the animal might jump out of the water to escape a predator.
That's exactly what flying fish are doing as they skim over the waves. $200 million years later, the forest flish has evolved powered flight and has left the ocean altogether. Its pectoral fins have become wings that beat 30 times a second, making them fast and maneuverable. And because they no longer have to swim, their pelvic fins have evolved into hooks, so they can hang upside down when they roost. At the end of the day, the last of the forest flesh come back to the roost. They spend the night huddled together, clinging under a branch. But any stragglers still out in the forest in the failing light are heading for trouble. Something is waiting for them. This is a slithersucker, and it lies in wait for forest flesh.
The slithersucker is one of the more wonderful envisionments for the future.
But its ancestors were very lowly organisms.
These organisms are all around in the present day. If you know where to look for them, that you will see them, particularly on moist days, moving very slowly, but moving across the forest floor. A common name for one of these, at least in North America, is dog's dinner, because they look like the dog just lost its dinner on the surface of the forest floor.
It's also known as a slime mold. A primitive collection of single-celled creatures that move together as one, able to change shape and creep along the ground.
So what we just witnessed that took in that poor unsuspecting flesh was a giant, much more organized descendant of one of these slime molds that is about as low in the present scale of evolution as we can go in terms of being a complex quote-unquote animal. But again, it's not an animal, it's not a plant, it's a very early form of life. This very early form of life has survived to become a very efficient predator. They tend to live in a forest, as we show it here in the future, of giant lichens, lichen trees. Now, a lichen is an interrelationship between an alga and a fungus. Today, they do not grow very large at all. Here, we have allowed them to form large shrubs that make the understory of a forest. A lichen is a fairly open structure. There's a lot of holes in it, and it's in those holes that the slithersucker hides. And it comes out at the appropriate time of day when the flesh are flying, and it drapes itself down, and along comes the poor unsuspecting flesh. Flies into this structure, and like a spider web, it wraps around. And the slime mold secretes a digestive juice and starts to slowly dissolve down the flesh. Poor flesh is having a very rough day, for sure. And on the way by, the lichen tree is getting goods out of this because non-digested parts or bits of the flesh that get away are going to fertilize the ground in the forest. Well, under the circumstances so far, the slithersucker is making a pretty good living. It's catching lots of flesh, but these circumstances are not necessarily going to hold through time, and the environment can change, and the number of flesh can drop off, or something else can change within the lichen tree forest. So we might envision that it was time for the slithersucker to move on.
The slithersucker can move slowly, but not for any great distance. But like its ancestors, it's a shapeshifter. It can transform itself into something else to attract the attention of another forest creature. And then it sits on a branch and waits. If the slithersucker waits for long enough, it'll be noticed by a giant of the forest. A 5-meter-high, 8-ton squid. A Megasquid.
Squid today, of course, live in the ocean. They've got no skeleton, they're just squishy, and they swim by changing the shape of their body. But 200 million years in the future, this animal could have got onto land.
100 million years earlier, the world was very different. A mass extinction had wiped out most land animals, but where there's a gap, something will fill it. With no predators left, the cephalopods, squid and octopus, hauled themselves out of the water.
Now, when it first went onto land, it must have dragged itself along. But the megasquid has evolved from its arms, effectively legs.
The megasquid still has 8 legs, even though it now moves on dry land. And it has to walk without tripping over itself.
Moving with 8 legs, of course, is a problem. Big animals have 2 legs, or most of them, the big mammals, have 4 today. But the megasquid's got 8. They're about equal in size and shape. It can't move all of its legs randomly, it will fall over. It's got to stay balanced, so it's got to keep some of the legs on the ground. But if it moves the front and the back leg on one side, and the middle legs on the other, and then it moves the other pair, it will always be balanced and the legs won't hit into each other, so it can travel forward.
The megasquid doesn't have a skeleton. With no bones, it still has to support its weight. Each leg is made almost entirely of muscle, running along and around it. When the squid puts its weight down, the muscles around the leg contract, holding it in shape. Muscle is incompressible, so the squid can support itself by muscle power alone. But walking isn't the only problem for a forest-dwelling squid.
Megasquid's living in a forest, and communicating in forest is difficult. You can't see very far, there are trees in the way. It may be humid, there may be a lot of cloud. But forest is often a very noisy place, because all the animals there learn to communicate with sound in one way or another, like birds singing, howler monkeys calling. So the squid uses sound.
Squid breathe through a tube called the siphon. And they use the movement of air as they breathe to make a noise. Elastic membranes are stretched across the tube and vibrate as the air passes over them, just like vocal cords do in mammals. But this doesn't make much of a noise. To amplify its call, the megasquid has a resonating chamber, an expandable pouch on its forehead.
It's a bit like blowing across a milk bottle. A rather small air current produces quite a large sound, because a big area resonates. Frogs do this with their vocal sacs. Many other animals have similar mechanisms somewhere within or around the body.
A forest couldn't be more different from the megasquid's original home. And such a new lifestyle needs a new diet. Megasquid, unlike their squid ancestors, have very good color vision. Squid today are carnivores, but megasquid have added plants to their diet. The brightly colored lichen capsules are easy to see in the forest gloom. But some fruit are not what they seem. Remember the slithersucker? It changed its shape to look like a fruit, and it's still on the branch, still waiting. It's not a perfect disguise, but it's enough to fool a megasquid. The slithersucker has no intention of becoming anyone's meal. It's using the megasquid to hitch a ride. It takes control of the megasquid's mind like some mind-altering sci-fi alien. This was all part of the slithersucker's grand plan.
The slithersucker is inside the megasquid. The megasquid can travel great distances and thereby carry the slithersucker further than it could possibly crawl by itself, but the slithersucker is on the inside. Remember that the slithersucker is an association of separate cells. Some of those cells migrate up to the brain, inflame the brain, and alter the behavior of the megasquid. Others migrate out into the air pouches that are on the front of the megasquid, the trumpeting sources. The ones that go to the brain basically drive the poor megasquid wild.
The slithersucker might be inside the megasquid, but there's an easy way out. It makes the megasquid sneeze.
And this achieves an enormous distribution, because each time that the megasquid bumps into yet another tree, it's going to leave a few more cells that can reestablish the colony of the slithersucker. And when finally the colony sort of runs out, or we get rid of most of the cells within the poor megasquid, it finally settles down again, and that was a tremendous hangover, but it recovers and it goes on about its business.
Hijacking an animal to get a ride to somewhere else isn't new. Flatworms that infest snails migrate into the eye stalk and create pulsating patterns to attract the attention of birds. When the bird flies away, the flatworms get carried along and dispersed in the bird's droppings. At least the megasquid doesn't get eaten. Once the slithersucker has left, the megasquid just continues its life in the endless forest. But it's not alone. This is a squibbon, yet another sort of squid. Even more bizarre than megasquid, this squid spends most of its life high in the canopy, hurtling through the branches.
This is a squibbon. It's an octopus-like creature that's taken to the trees, and it's quite the opposite of megasquid. It's a very fast, highly agile swinger, basically. It uses its long arms for swinging end over end, and it can do this because it's freed from a major constraint that vertebrates had when they were swinging from trees, and that is limited flexibility.
The most agile swingers in the vertebrate world today are gibbons. For animals with a rigid skeleton, their arms are amazingly flexible, allowing them to swing through the trees at incredible speed. A squibbon has 8 arms instead of 2, and it doesn't have a skeleton, just muscle.
There's infinite flexibility in the Squibbon, and so it has no problem being an aerial acrobat. It's got great eyes. These eyes are a little bit unusual because they're on stalks. What it does when it's swinging is to keep these eyes parallel to the body, close to the center of gravity. So all it has to do really is to adjust the position of the eyes on the stalks to keep watching where it's going. The brain takes care of the rest.
To live in the three-dimensional world of the forest canopy, the Squibbons have to be intelligent. Young Squibbons learn by play. A chase sharpens their senses and coordination. But the young Squibbons have more to learn. The forest can be a dangerous place. Megasquid don't just eat fruit. They like some meat with their vegetables. Especially Squibbons. But the Squibbon community won't abandon the baby. The Squibbons are much smaller than the huge Megasquid, but they can outthink it. They distract the Megasquid, pelting it with spore pods, harassing and mobbing it, buying time. The baby is snatched to safety. And the Megasquid goes hungry. A Squibbon community, sharing, looking out for each other. Could this be the start of a new social intelligence?
If there's going to be continued development of further intelligence after 200 million years, I certainly believe it will be the cephalopods. A creature like a Squibbon is just following through on 3 billion years of evolution of cephalopods making bigger and better brains. And there's no reason they're going to stop doing that.
200 million years in the future, the process of evolution has brought the glimmer of another new intelligence in the Squibbon. But how far could that go? Could Squibbons become even more intelligent? Is it possible that these forests could be the birthplace of a new civilization? What else could the miracle of evolution hold for the future of planet Earth?